smarter. Tom is glad to hear you without the feedback today.
I'm getting better, not smarter, but better. Thank you, Mr.
Excellent.
Chairman.
I think that goes for me too. Well, we'll start off today with bill introductions. Is there any bill introductions from the committee? Hearing none. Any bill introductions from the audience? Seeing none, got that out of the way. We'll now turn our attention to the hearing on Senate Bill 36. Adam, can you give us a briefing?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Can you hear me all right?
Excellent.
Okay, very good. Senate Bill 36 is a combination, I believe, of two bills that were introduced last session. They've been combined to become Senate Bill 36. Essentially what the bill does, it provides for salvage vehicle pools to perform vehicle checks for vehicles that are located on their premises. And also the bill allows for salvage vehicle pools and salvage vehicle dealers to apply to the Division of Vehicles for ownership documents. That's in the broad background. Getting a little more of the detail, Section 1 would allow qualified employees of the salvage vehicle pools to perform checks prior to the issuance of a title for vehicles stored on the salvage vehicle pool's premise. If such vehicles are designated as a salvage vehicle, non-repairable vehicle, or non-highway vehicle, the superintendent of the highway patrol has the authority to either revoke, suspend, or decline to renew or decline to issue a certification to any employee of the salvage vehicle pool. The salvage vehicle pool is required to maintain a bond in the amount of $50,000, and only salvage vehicle pools that sell at least 2,000 vehicles per year would even be qualified to have their employees perform such checks. Section 2 of the bill would allow salvage vehicle pools and dealers the ability to apply to the Division of Vehicles for ownership documents of certain vehicles without forwarding the statement of origin or the certificate of title. If such vehicle is subject to an insurance claim and the vehicle has been left on the premises unclaimed for more than 30 days, as part of this procedure, the salvage vehicle pool or dealer must have submitted 2 written notices to the vehicle owner of record and any lien holder. Upon successful application, the division would issue either a certificate of title, a salvage title, a non-repairable vehicle certificate title, or free and clear of all liens, security interests, and encumbrances. I would say lastly, I did send, hopefully you received it, there are some technical changes that were intended to have been incorporated into the bill. They were inadvertently left out. It's my fault, not the requester's fault. Just some snafu we had. So I do want to point that out, that there was a balloon with technical amendments. That was a fault of mine that did not get incorporated into the underlying bill. And with that, I'd be happy to stand for any questions.
Before we ask for questions for Adam, we did print off those that balloon amendment that was intended to be in the bill. They should be either on top of your folder or in your packet. Committee, are there any questions for Adam?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question when appropriate.
Proceed. I like your background.
Thank you. Adam, were there any changes in this bill from when we had it last year other than the technical amendments?
Yeah, substantively, they did. I think when it finally passed, I can't remember which chamber, I believe in the Senate or the House, it started out as just for Section 2, just salvage vehicle pools, and I believe salvage vehicle dealers got included. So that was a change, but that was a change that was made last year. None of the underlying changes, the substantive changes in the bill, I believe those were all incorporated into the bill last year. It would just be the more technical changes that I can recall off the top of my head. I don't recall of any other substantive changes that were made.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any further questions? Seeing none, we'll turn to proponents. First up, I have listed as Brad Smoot. Welcome to the committee, and thank you for coming over.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for having. May I take off my mask? And
you may take off your mask while you're speaking.
All right, thank you very much. It's a little bit of reality for me, so I'm real pleased to be here in person instead of over the screen. So thanks very much for having this hearing and giving us a chance to chat. I'm going to spend most of my time on behalf of Copart today, just talking about the process that this went through last year. I think it'll be helpful. For those of you who were here, you'll probably remember much of this. It'll all come back. For new folks, why it's good to know what your colleagues have done, I think, in the previous year. Copart, by the way, is an international auto salvage pool. They have two Kansas licensed facilities here in Kansas, one in Kansas City, Kansas, and one in Wichita. And they were a proponent of one of these bills in the Senate and the other bill in the House. And there will be others here to speak on that, particularly Peter Greenwood, who's our manager out of Kansas City. He came over this morning to visit with you and help a little bit answering questions about the technical aspects of this. Copart contacted the Kansas Highway Patrol, which does inspections of damaged vehicles that are set for salvage licensing. And we talked to them in December of 2019. In 2020, we introduced a bill. It was Senate Bill 374 to allow the Highway Patrol to create a program to certify just a handful of people who work in these salvage pools. There's really only two big ones in the state, IAA and Copart, so that it would relieve the Highway Patrol of some of the responsibilities and help eliminate some of the backlog that had developed at one time. We had as many as 500 cars sitting around on the lot, unable to get them inspected. Because of COVID and other reasons, we've got a lot fewer today, but undoubtedly that process of handling these cars is going to fluctuate over time, and we may see similar increases. We thought this was a great way to solve the problem. It's been done in New Mexico, and so we proposed that. The legislature in 374 was introduced here in this committee. This committee heard it. It made a couple of changes, added a bonding requirement, and limited the number of outfits that could get involved in this inspection process approved by the Highway Patrol to only facilities that produce 2,000 or submit 2,000 vehicles a year to that. Just didn't want to give the Highway Patrol too much work to do, but did want to eliminate the backlog that was occurring at our facility. The process allows the Highway Patrol to adopt rules and regulations, to grant the certification, and to pull the ticket on anybody who's not acting properly. The 20-hour fee that's called for in the statute, the $20 fee, still goes to the Highway Patrol. We don't get any of it for doing the work. They still get it. That should help cover the cost of developing rules and regs and their other responsibilities. Our thinking is that these are some terribly well-qualified law enforcement people who don't necessarily need to be doing this kind of work, and their time might be better spent elsewhere. Senate Bill 374 passed this committee, passed the Kansas Senate 39-0, was scheduled to be heard in the House Transportation Committee on the day the bottom fell out because of COVID. Simultaneously, during that first couple of months of the session last year, House Bill 2501 was being considered as a way to expedite the process for requesting salvage titles from the Division of Vehicles. And that bill was worked out with the Division of Vehicles. It passed the House committee and then passed the House 119-3. It came to this committee. Well, this committee amended it to allow salvage vehicle dealers as well as salvage pools to submit applications for salvage titles. It was set on the Senate floor to be voted on, and I think the intent at the time, the chairman can speak to this better than anyone else, the intent at the time was to merge 374 and 2501 on the Senate floor and move them into conference committee. And of course, as I said earlier, the bottom fell out because of COVID, and that didn't get done. This bill now, Senate Bill 36, contains two extremely well vetted, well-intended pieces of legislation designed to speed up the process for getting salvage titles in a safe and effective manner without adversely impacting the flow of capital to the Highway Patrol. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'll quit and allow others the opportunity, and happy to answer questions now or at some later date.
And I think while you're up there at the microphone, we'll go ahead and ask questions of Brad. I know there's follow-up information coming. Committee questions.
I have a question, Mr. Chairman. Senator Hawk here, when appropriate.
You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Brad, I know I may have some constituents ask this question, and since we have some new members on the committee, I'll ask it. How is the public assured that there won't be some bad actor that will inappropriately get a title for a stolen vehicle, or one that isn't really roadworthy, by not having the Highway Patrol there doing that inspection?
A great question. I think I can help a little bit with that. First and foremost, we have the same interest in having good, clean titles come out of our yards as anyone else does. And so that's a very important feature. Secondly, the Highway Patrol is not taken out of the process. The applications for the salvage titles and so forth, and through the inspection process, still have to go through the Highway Patrol for clearance to make sure that they're not involved somehow in a crime. And so that process continues. The Highway Patrol is not taken out of the process just because we're doing the on-the-ground inspection. A third aspect of it is this is limited to a very small number of folks. I think the fourth point I'd make is that they have to post a $50,000 bond. We have to post a $50,000 bond. And finally, the Highway Patrol creates the program, defines who's qualified, reviews who's going to be doing it, and has the authority to get rid of any bad actors along the way. So I think you have built in a lot of safeguards in the way that these two bills were amended and adjusted last year. That helps.
Follow-up question, Mr. Chairman. But will the Highway Patrol, this is still limited to those larger companies, will the Highway Patrol still make occasional visits to their premises and check in with the people who are doing those inspections?
Well, I would guess, Senator, that they have that authority to do so. What their intention is, I can't speak to that, but nothing would prohibit them from doing it. They could indeed make that part of their rules and regulations and their supervision of this whole certification program.
Do we know if they have an intent to do that in rules and reg when we do this?
I do not know anything about their future.
It would seem to me, Mr. Chairman, that there should be some legislative intent that the Highway Patrol and their rules and regs maintain some appropriate oversight of both those people that they've delegated inspections to and the sites. I don't know what you think about that, or the other people on the committee, but I don't know if that will show in testimony or if there's some other appropriate way, but it would seem appropriate legislative intent. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Brad.
Senator Hawk, I don't know if I can provide you any help, but I do believe that the licensed and bonded auto dealers have the same rights to do their own inspections as it currently states, and the Highway Patrol has set up a system for them.
That does make me feel good. Thank you. Thanks for the reminder on that.
Committee, further questions? Seeing no further questions for Brad, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Next up, we have Peter Greenwood with Copart. Welcome back to the committee this year.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and committee members. It is good to be back. I didn't think it was going to happen. Again, my name is Peter Greenwood. I'm the regional manager for Copart. I cover the Kansas and Wichita operations, Kansas City and Wichita operations. I also have with me via WebEx Mark Binder, who is our Director of Government Affairs, so he's here to assist with any questions. Brad did a fantastic job going over both areas of this Senate Bill 36. I just wanted to remind the chairman and the committee, when we look at both of these items, both the pieces from Senate Bill 374 and House Bill 2501, Copart in Kansas processes roughly 40,000 cars per year. And both the VIN inspections and the abandonment vehicles represent a very small piece of our annual numbers. When it comes to the inspections, I was in the Kansas City operation this past week, and we only had 4 ready for that day. In the state, we typically get maybe 6 to 10 a week. And again, just to speak more on that, Senator Hawk, you know, you had certainly brought up some good points of security for the citizens. We have done this in New Mexico for multiple years. This is an operation that probably produces, volume-wise, about 25,000 cars per year. Again, similar volume, probably 8 to 10 VIN inspections a week. They are highly regulated there, and in the 15-plus years they have been doing this, have had, New Mexico used to be part of my territory as well. I've recently given it up to take on Minnesota. We'll see how that turns out. However, in the 4 or 5 years that I had their operation, we had very, very little friction or issues from the state or any problems created. Again, I want to let the committee and chair know that this will be you know, governed essentially by the Kansas Highway Patrol, and there will only be certain people that are allowed and through the Highway Patrol to be able to process these VIN inspections, primarily higher level management people. On the abandonment, the House Bill 2501, again, this is a very small portion. Roughly right now, I believe in the state, I have approximately 1,000 of these vehicles. Again, these are vehicles that have primarily very low value. These are typically come through our insurance carrier partners. They have very little value. There's really no interest from the previous owner, the insured, or the insurance companies. They essentially abandon them to us. We have, you know, financially invested time and money to go pick these up and process them, and now they're sitting on our lots. It does not represent essentially a financial gain for us. For our industry, what it does is it takes up room in our facilities. We can park roughly 600 cars per acre, and at one time, we got up all the way up to 1,800 cars in the state. When you're looking at $500,000 per acre in the state of Kansas, purchased and developed, it starts to become a capacity problem. So other than that, I just wanted to thank the chairman and the committee for letting me speak again on Senate Bill 36. I'm available for any questions.
Committee questions for Peter?
Mr. Chair, I
Senator
have
Bowers.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Peter, I think there's some good things in here that I wanted to mention, even with Brad too, but 2,000 vehicles, I think that's a key number, that your agents are bonded and certified. I think that's a reassurance that we know, just as a dealer, such as myself, that we're bonded and responsible. I believe the certified letters to the owners, the 2 letters that are to go out, so that people don't feel like their property is being taken away from them, that they're notified properly, is really important with the abandoned side of that. So I think those are some key things that I need to mention.
You know, even through, typically again, when these vehicles come to us, the insurance companies have already made that attempt to acquire, you know, documents to process transferable title, and whether these folks have unfortunately passed on, they've moved away, or they literally have no interest in these vehicles because they're typically older model and hold no real value. They've purchased a new car and moved on.
just simply abandoned and
And
have
there's.
nothing to do with it. Someone else's problem is the
Yes,
way you look at
correct.
that.
And I think the last time we spoke, one of the senators had said, so let me get this. This is like if I take my garbage out to the curb, and on Wednesday, they don't pick it up, and I put it in my garage. And I keep doing that because they don't pick it up. Well, now I have to buy a new garage. It was amazing how appropriate that was, because these vehicles are, again, very, very, very low value and hold, no value for anybody, really.
And truly, they're just taking up space. That's as simple as that, just to be crushed later.
And as I was telling Brad, in my Wichita facility, I've recently had to develop and lease 10 extra acres, which is costly. And in my Kansas City facility, I've just purchased and will develop an additional 70 acres of property. So that is, again, very costly. Not all to do with these two items, but certainly a piece of it.
600 cars per acre, that's an interesting number, too. So thank you, Peter, for coming in, and thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Pittman, did I see you unmute?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Yeah, my biggest concern, obviously, I want to help you, and I think this is, as the Senator Bowers had mentioned, when it is just trash and it is taking up space, we want to be ever present that, if people's property, if it's lost in the mix somehow. My biggest concerns last time around hearing this bill was, whether we gave enough notice or the proper notice in a way that, made sure that those who maybe for whatever reason have their car inside of the lot and they're having a hard time getting to it, that they have the time and they have the ability to get to it. But after hearings last time, it seems as though there is a lot of runtime up to the point where the cars actually would then get disposed of. Can you confirm, though, that most cars or all cars do get destroyed after this process, or are they auctioned off again with some kind of a rework of title?
Senator Pittman, thank you for your questions. And yes, once transferable title is received through this process, they will be auctioned off with the appropriate title. And in most of these cases, it will be a salvage vehicle. So these would primarily be purchased similar to, as you can imagine, we also have vehicles that have very low value. However, we do have transferable title. The majority of those vehicles are picked up and purchased by the pick and pull operations who come, they purchase it, they bring it to their facilities, they're parted out and are part of that supply chain.
Sure.
So that's an important factor as well. Very, very few of these vehicles are clean title and high value. So, I look at this inventory every single week for my region. And again, and it has a value in there. So yes, these vehicles would be auctioned off. However, I would say the greater majority of them will have salvage title, will be purchased by those downstream vendors that are using this to part out. And
Sure.
Also, I can remember the last time we spoke, you were worried about the notice to the owners of these vehicles, because obviously, somebody's involved in an accident, if they're in the hospital or what have you, this is a traumatic, experience in a lot of cases, and Copart is very sensitive to that. When you look at the inventory that I currently have, the greater majority of these vehicles have all had the letter sent out as deemed appropriate and by law, and most of these vehicles are hundreds of days old, if not thousands. I have several vehicles that are 2,000 and 3,000 days old. That simply, we've had nobody come back and look to have their property recovered. Again, these are such low value vehicles. So I hope I answer your question, Senator Pittman.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question when appropriate.
Go ahead. I thought I saw one more, but go ahead, Tom.
Thank you. Just clarification, is House Bill 2501 included in Senate Bill 36, or will it still be a separate bill eventually?
They're both included together in this bill.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions for Peter? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Thank you.
Next on the agenda, we have John Peterson. I see his smiling face there on the screen.
But can you hear me?
I can hear you excellent.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Appreciate the opportunity to appear. And I represent Insurance Auto Auctions, which is the other major auto salvage pool facility operator in the state of Kansas, operating 2 facilities, one in Kansas City and one in Wichita. And we support Senate Bill 36. As has been noted, it does contain the provisions of 2501 as it came out of committee. But just dealing with that last question, 2501 would have died on adjournment of the last session, but its provisions are included, except for the technical changes in Senate Bill 36. We introduced the original 2501 last year in the House committee, and then Representative Pittman has referred to some of the hearings that we had at that time, and it dealt with what is on page 9 of Senate Bill 36, the portion where in the rare instance where a vehicle is brought to either to a salvage pool or now a salvage dealer by or at the behest of an insurance company, but the insurance company ends up not paying the claim. There are other statutes that deal with the situation where if an insurance company pays a claim but hasn't gotten good title. But this is taking care of the fairly rare, but as the gentleman who just testified noted, those numbers do add up, those fairly rare situations where the insurance company does not pay the claim, but the owner abandons it. And again, as I note that the provisions require that it first to have been abandoned for a minimum of 30 days, and then that there be 2 certified letters, and each certified letter has to contain a right to pick it up for a 30-day period of time from receipt of that letter. So you've built a minimum of 3 months into the system, and as a practical matter, it's much, much more than that. I am joined today, I hope, on the web system by Andrea Christenberry with Insurance Auto Auctions. If the committee has any questions that I cannot answer, which would probably be any questions, but we would encourage your support of Senate Bill 36, and we do support the inspection parts that were added by this committee last year, and we do support the agreed language, including salvage dealers under certain restrictions to be able to take care of the situation of abandoned cars. Thank you.
Any questions?
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. John, on a certified letter, I know as we look at this electronic age, on some of the things we dealt with in financial institutions, we made provisions to do that electronically. I would assume on this bill, those certified letters still have to be through the U.S. mail, and there aren't provisions for electronic notification, or are there provisions for electronic notification?
There are not.
Okay, thank you. Good answer. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Further questions for John? Bowers?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And to John, to that point, I think with someone as a car dealer who does abandon vehicles stored in our PIN occasionally, we do not want to do the electronic notification. It needs to be a certified letter, and I'm glad there's 2 with the information of the last previous owner. It's very important that those letters go out and our receipt is given back to us so that we know the folks are getting notice where their car is sitting at. And I believe that 30 days after the receipt is still a good date, giving it up to, like you said, up to 3 months. That's a lot of time. Most people know where their car is after they've received 2 letters. They just don't care that it's there. And abandoned, that just means walked away. So certified mail is still very important, very key to this bill.
And I recall when we were initially working on the draft of this bill that I think that was an important element for DMV folks who are available on this call, but they reviewed and had input onto as to this language.
Mr. Chairman, I have another question that Senator Bowers made me think about.
Go ahead, Senator Hawk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What happens if the person cannot be found with that certified letter, that maybe they abandoned their apartment or place of residence? Is it just that the certified letter is returned by the post office and you know that you made a good faith effort to do that? Or is there some other provision when that certified letter can't be delivered or if the person's in the hospital or something and don't get their mail?
Senator, that's an excellent question. On page 9, beginning on line 38, there is a provision. If the individual does not receive, or if the pool does not receive proof of delivery for the notices, the salvage vehicle pool shall cause notice of the application for ownership to be published in a newspaper of general circulation in the county where the vehicle is located.
That's great. Thank you. It sounds to me like you've been very, very thorough on looking at all of the contingencies on this. Are there any other contingencies I or the committee hasn't thought about that, as you look at this from your vantage point, needs to be there? I would guess not.
I don't think so. I do have to note in passing, Senator Hawk, that a minute before the committee started, you were commenting about how you really needed to clean up your office. And then Senator Pittman showed you how to, and you've done just an excellent job.
I've learned my lesson.
With your background, sir.
I've learned my lesson from the incredible support we have from the various lobbying people who are always very neat and professional. So I'm trying to follow suit. Thank you.
Committee, further questions? Seeing none, thank you. Committee, I want to note there is the changes that Adam mentioned are in your packet in balloon form. Also, you should have written testimony or at least a PDF from Catalina Pajara with LKQ. Are there any further proponents wishing to testify? Seeing or hearing none. Are there any opponents? Seeing and hearing none, want to remind the committee that there is opponent testimony. Should be in your packets from Colonel Jones and from Ed Klump. If not, they were attached to your emails and PDFs. Be excellent to review these. Are there any neutrals? With that, we'll close the hearing on Senate Bill 36. Is there any further business to become before the committee today? Seeing none, we're adjourned.